Welcome back to New Amsterdam Radio, the podcast for creators, thinkers, and doers. It is I, the mayor, Global Boys, in the mayor's office, speaking with those who are doing the thing, and the thing is a line of fantastic novels. Please welcome my guest on this episode, Freeny. How's it going?
It's going good. I met Ray about a couple of years ago, and I think you know Ray, and he's been very helpful in my career. And writers, especially those who self-publish like I've been doing, are great targets. Scam artists are like flies out there. And I warn any writer out there that's going to self-publish, wait for the phone to ring, and first thing they want is money.
Yeah.
And nothing for it.
I've gone through that myself. I think it's a rite of passage for a lot of self-published authors, but thankfully you're on the other side. Your body of work has grown to critical acclaim. We were talking about that before we went live. I mean, that must be great to have, starting basically your platform, you're on your own, and having people loving your work.
Yeah, and like I said, the characters are all important to me, and they will guide me through the work. And because I want to read the story as well as I'm writing it. And sometimes, like I wrote a mystery called Nobody's Angel, which is another one that Ray may be working on. I didn't know to the very end who really did it. I actually put tons of clues in. And then when I got to the end, I finally decided, and then I could go back, put the right clues in. And it was like reading the book while I'm writing it. It was wonderful.
So let's talk about Nobody.
Nobody's Angel?
Yeah, let's talk about Nobody's
Angel. It's about a detective. He finds this girl in the alley, dead of an overdose, and just something familiar about her that he won't pass it off just as an OD. And it goes back to his past. The girl's from his hometown, a very small hometown where he was seduced by an older woman, and lots of characters in there. One of the reviews said, every time you think you know who did it, you're wrong. And that's because it's the way I wrote it, because I didn't know to the very end either. I made it that way. Crazy way to write. Nobody writes that way.
Right. Well, that was my next question. When it comes down to a concept like that, a crime mystery, twists and turns, you think about the story first and try to see what characters will react to that the best, or you character first and think about the story afterwards?
Get the characters first so that they can help lead me the way, and then each chapter is its own story in a way. And as I go along, the story goes along. I don't have an outline like a lot of them do, storyboards and all of that. I don't follow any of the rules, but it works for me. It probably wouldn't work for anybody else, but it works great for me.
When you sat down and decided to make a gripping thriller, we know crime pieces are pretty much in vogue these days. What was your approach to come up with a story that was engaging as well as being fresh and different?
Well, that would go back to The Dogs of Lenin, because it is so timely, and it's a political thriller. So, and it's about media bias, which is a lot of that out there right now. And one of the characters is hateful towards the media. The other one wants to be in the media, and it's a love story within a plot. I mean, the love story carries it, but it's not all about the love story, because I wrote it in 3 parts. One part about him, one part about her, one part about them together. And one of the compliments I had from one of the reviews I got was I was able to leave Lisa out of the book for at least 200 pages, and you still thought about her, and you were ready for her to come back when she came back. And I thought that was something I didn't even realize I had done.
So you talked about The Dogs of Lenin first. That was released first. And you were saying before we went live that it was kind of timely when you wrote it, but now it's still as relevant as it was when it was released. Talk to me a little bit more about that, the way we are approaching these books as readers today.
Well, yeah, because it is timely, even though it was written during the Cold War era, because, I mean, some of the things that are happening in my book, or happened in my book, are starting to happen again today in a different form, in a different way, a different time. But it's still happening, and it's going to get worse. But, at least I didn't envision how bad it would get. But So there's a sequel there if I decided to do one, because I didn't give it the happy forever after ending. I don't believe that's life.
Was that a temptation to give it a Hollywood ending, or it was kind of like, no, this is where the character stories went?
No, it was where they're back together, but he doesn't trust her because she's still part of the media. She doesn't trust him because he's become as bad as the media he hated, because he started to be just as bad as they are, make up stories just for the hell of it sometimes, because it made good stories. And so they're just not ready. But I leave it up in the air. I don't want to give away the ending, but
no, please don't.
Where it could happen. But that's for people to decide. They could decide if their own mind, if they want those two to get back together, they can do that or not.
So when creating So we're creating a period piece with such a factual backstory. Talk to me about the world building aspect. I mean, what actually happened is a little bit of dramatic license, but what's been your journey in balancing the two and creating this world behind the Dogs of Lenin?
Well, I was born and raised in England, so a part of the book is in England, because I put one of the police of the character in England for a while. And it was just something, the one question everybody asks every ride, and I'm sure they can answer it, but I can't. They say, how did you get the idea for the book? I don't have a damn clue. It just was there, and it just came, and once it started, it just kept going.
Yeah.
That's
and
it.
When it was released, what were some of the things that the readers were saying, specifically about the book, how they felt when they were going through that story and journey?
Yeah, because I said I could do it in 3 parts. So the first part is how she goes her journey, where she becomes very famous in the media, and his journey where he joins an activist group that was a leftover from a previous government, which actually did happen. And I use real names when I could. And so in the chapter about him is how he's climbing within the organization that he joined to become even a part of it. And then he has all the clues and everything he needs to out these Russians that have been planted here since World War II. But now he needs her, because nobody's going to believe him, because he's an activist and he's a pain in the butt, quite frankly, to the media and everybody else. So he needs her help to help out the people that he's found. And she does, and he thinks it will ruin her career. Instead, it makes it better.
So you had mentioned that there was elements of story that you could have incorporated in Dogs of Lenin, but your next book was a whole different universe in Nobody's Angel. What was the motivation to go to a whole new world and start with a whole new set of characters instead of continuing the story there?
Well, because of when I was growing up in England, I used to read a lot of mysteries. A lot of the mysteries, and I started with the mysteries. The Dogs of Lenin is all by itself. It's political thriller, like I said, but it's not my usual mysteries. I have wrote 3 other mysteries: Deja Vu, and But You Can't Hide, and Nobody's Angel. And I wrote from my mystery, reading it. Like I said, I never took a lesson. I learned from others. And when I read Alec Higgins, her name was the writer in England. When I could find out who done it from her perspective, I figured I was ready to write my own, because as long as she could fool me, I couldn't write one. But then when she couldn't fool me anymore, then I started to write mysteries. So mysteries actually came first. It's just the Dogs of Lenin because it was so timely, was marketed first. And I've got 17 scripts. I've got romantic comedies, I've got a Western, I've got thrillers, I've got crazy, I've got everything except sci-fi. I can't stand sci-fi because I don't understand it.
It's funny you mentioned that, because when I was growing up, I didn't like Westerns, being from New York, but that was my first novel, because I had to say, I have to write something
Really?
I don't like. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I enjoyed I only done one, but it was a script. I haven't done a book about it, but I really enjoyed it. I love to watch Westerns. I mean, I wish they made more.
Right.
So
Right.
that's what my husband and I watch, basically, Virginia and things like that. So
I
I've had a lot of. Have you seen the cover?
Yes, I have. I have.
My 14-year-old grandson did the cover.
Oh, that's cool. Keeping the family.
Just from describing the book. And my husband gave it the title because my original title was Media, but he said this will be better. And the whole idea is the fact that America is being led like sheep by the Russians. And that was why it's called the Dance of Lenin, because the Lenin's leading the Americans. I didn't even know they were being had.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they're still being had. So that's why I did a forward to the book. And I said that, what's happening today could be happening now. It probably is.
I had the pleasure of checking out the book trailer for Dogs of Lenin, and also Nobody's Angel, but we can talk about Dogs of Lenin first. Yeah. And it must have been interesting to see your characters come to life there.
They truly did come to life. They really did. And one of the reviews I had on it, I've never had a bad review, but one of the reviews said that I allowed Lisa to be her own person. Now, I didn't realize that I was doing that, but somebody was, able to see that I actually let her be who she wanted to be. She was very strong.
Oh, yeah.
And he was too. But they never loved anybody else or could love anybody else. And that was the part of the story, because it was a doomed love affair. It was never meant to actually happen, probably because they were so damn different. But they could never be good with anybody else in their whole life.
One of the cool things, though, I would say that to be an author with no bad reviews, that must be very inspiring. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I haven't had one bad review. And they've all been great. It's amazing. When I read them, I can't believe that I find things about myself that I did that I wasn't even really conscious of.
Yeah.
One woman had made the... Go ahead, sorry.
No, I cut you off there. You were saying?
Yeah, one woman had made the remark, one of the reviewers had said that she wasn't around during the Cold War, and so she was glad to learn about the Cold War. So it was also educational in some respect, because it had some history to it.
And you mentioned that you spent a lot of time researching elements there. What was that like? Was it like a straight-on researching as you write these chapters? You take time off to get the facts and then write around it? Like, what's the writer's process there?
No, I researched it first and took down all the names and anything that would actually make a good story. But I needed to get this real names in there: Nixon, Reagan, Clinton. All there's some real names in there that I wanted to make sure that I got it accurate. So I researched the characters that I was going to probably using as an example. And forgive me, I don't know what's happened to my voice. My husband says I've lost it. I don't know what the hell happened to it, but it doesn't even sound like me when I hear me.
I get that same feeling too when I hear myself recorded. I totally get you. I totally understand.
Yeah, he says it's like I don't know, it's stringy or whatever. Yeah, so I did do a lot before I was ready to put it on paper. And that way I knew I was ready, and I could, refer to the characters and not have somebody come up later, and they never have, and said, gee, that wasn't true. That never happened, because I made sure that wouldn't happen.
When I look at the book trailer for Nobody's Angel, different feeling and vibe altogether. This is a very gritty New York, and there is a dead body in the first scene. What was that like, seeing that aspect of one of your novels come to life, seeing the gruesome side of what you created in your mind?
It was good. I mean, it was more again about the characters, because he was so sure that he should have known who she was, and that was why he wouldn't give it up as a straight overdose. And when he found out that she was from his hometown, and it turned out that she was actually the daughter of the older woman who had seduced him when he was 16. So and then he realized that the murder, which started in New York, actually probably didn't happen in New York. It probably happened in that small town, because she definitely was murdered. Mm-hmm. He establishes that.
Yeah.
It's not a suicide or an overdose.
But the trailer must have been interesting to see that as well for another book of yours.
Yeah, and then, I did one called Deja Vu, and it was the same thing. It was based, the only thing I had based on that, there was a couple in my hometown that they were found dead in bed, and nobody seemed to know, like, what happened, and it was very close to where I lived. And I just used that as a start, and that was the only thing I had when I started.
Yeah.
But I solved it. But this time, they never did solve it, by the way.
I ask a lot of our guests who are authors about the process of creating a character only to put them through the ringer with challenges. What's been your approach? Do you get like nervous when you have to put a character in a dangerous situation? Is it an odd sensation?
Yeah, my characters are challenged because they're challenging me and I challenge them back. So, I mean, yeah, they really do. I know in one book that I wrote, it's an older book and I probably never really put out there, but it was this guy suddenly offs himself, and I'm sitting back from the computer and I go, God, I didn't know I was going to do that. It was really weird because it just came out. It's not a great book, so it probably never be out there. You have to learn somewhere. Like I said, I never took a lesson. I learned by doing.
So let's take a step back here. So at what point did you realize that writing was your craft and path? And what was your schooling like? If you're self-taught, when did you realize you graduated in that sort? Well,
I was born and raised in England, and I was a mystery fan. And I'm a businesswoman. I have a real estate industry that I'm in. And you have to have something that you're good at. And I was always good at English in class and stuff like that. Hated math. I couldn't add up 2 and 2. But so I could find that this is something I could work at and do. I still make grammatical errors, but I'm not perfect.
Well, who is really?
Well, maybe you are.
No, not at all. My editing staff, it's overworked by the first drafts I create when I make my books happen. And so when you decided that this is what you wanted to do and you put full bore into your ideas and characters, was there a moment where you felt like you arrived as like on the pantheon? Or did you feel like, hey, look, you could put me next to a Stephen King or a Joe Hill in the book? Like, is that a level of confidence that come in after a while?
Not really. No, I mean, I never put myself on that kind of a platform. I did go to writers' workshops in Santa Barbara for about 5 years, and I won some awards up there for screenwriting and also some comedy and stuff. So I was around other writers, and you learned a lot from that. Just like until I wrote, I never cussed a word. I wasn't a cusser. All of a sudden, the F word was easy. Because everybody in class said it,
Right.
It comes out in the book. I mean, people do it,
Yeah,
I learned that from being around people that just spoke that way. And I suddenly realized as I was listening to other people writing that, they were more real. So that was, if I said I didn't have any lessons, that was a lesson, but it wasn't a pure lesson, but that's how I got it from being real and around people who were.
In your opinion, what's missing from novels today? What's missing from bodies of work today?
I think I've had some books that I can put down halfway, or sometimes more than halfway and sometimes less. I think it's hard to keep somebody as interested to read the whole thing. I mean, some people take years to read a book, or weeks at least, And I think a story about a good book is you start it, you finish it, because you can't wait. And right. So that's what I achieved to do, because that's, like I said, I've read a lot of half books because they just didn't get me.
Mm-hmm. And
so I want people to get it.
With your process, what's it look like after a manuscript is done? Do you have a small circle of test readers? Do you send it to your editor directly in a 1v1 relationship? What's it look like when you're finished a first draft of a story?
I used to, when I first started to write, she's a romance writer now, she's kind of famous, but she used to read my stuff and to help me, sometimes with the grammar and stuff like that. And she was very good at doing that. But then after that, I just did my own thing. Editing is terrible. I mean, writing is wonderful, but when you go to edit, not only do you find that you can't halfway spell sometimes, is the fact that, you're going over the old thing and it's not new anymore. But you got to edit, because if you don't, it'll just be a piece of garbage, But I don't have anybody edit for me. I have suggestions, but I do my own editing.
Oh, absolutely. But do you have like a small test of readers? Like, do you say off to family members, or do you go to your team and go, what do you guys think of this?
Yeah, people I work with and some of my family, my daughters and granddaughters I've had read my stuff, and they help me with that by saying that they liked it. I mean, they don't help me write it, but they do help. They say they liked it. And people that say they can't put it down, I mean, that to me is the greatest compliment. If you can't put a book down, then it's good.
Right.
Unfortunately, I haven't read one lately, so I'm still looking for that one.
Oh, it's always good when even as an artist, you create the world, you create the characters, having that little opening of collaboratory efforts. I mean, that way you can always see what you guys think, test it in lab, and then tweak if need be. So it's always cool about that. And your body of work does speak for yourself. I'm at your Amazon page right now, and it's a parade of 5 stars, especially with Dogs of Lenin being really impressionable for a lot of people, and it's still relevant today. And that's kind of, to me, the difficulty from my end, creating stuff that resonates with people today and in the future. So, I mean, you don't need me to tell you this, but I'm impressed. That's awesome. A really good thing to have.
Well, I went in recently, only recently actually, and to find the Dogs of Lenin, and I was amazed how much, there's about 3 pages on the Dogs of Lenin in there. Some of it's reviews, some of it's just a lot about, but I was surprised. They really picked that up. So I'm happy with that.
And just from the getting the name out there, our marketing aspect, the book trailers are out. We just talked about those a minute ago. Has that been going to be a part of your strategy moving forward? I feel like they're very engaging. It got me into the world without even reading a single page. These book trailers, are there going to be more for your books down the line?
Yeah, I think it gives people an idea, a better idea. I don't always agree with the trailers. I think I might have done it a little different, but, basically they get it. I know recently I had somebody that was trying to recruit me to do something with my books, so I didn't use, obviously. And they wanted to hire a professional screenwriters. Well, I've got 17 scripts, and I've converted all my books to scripts. I know how to do that. I don't need someone to do that for me. Besides, I don't think they'd be as good with it, because I just lost that thing in my head. I don't think they know the characters as well as I do, so I don't want someone to do that for me.
Do you enjoy one aspect more than the other? Do you enjoy screenwriting over prose, or no? Or?
Depends on my mood. I quit screenwriting, went back to the novels, because I found that I could get more absorbed in that. But I did do for a while, because rom-coms were, becoming the big thing, and I did a few rom-coms, but that's just. It's slap happy. You can't really get too deep in that. You're trying to make people get a little giggle, but it's not real writing, I don't think.
Right.
I don't watch a lot of rom-coms. Do you do that? I'm sorry.
No, I mean, the thing is, when it comes down to writing, because I also, granted, my bibliography isn't as thorough as yours, but I have 8 books in total and 4 screenplays, so a little bit smaller. I tend to go spite first. So I go the genres I don't like, and I'll write it as if I did in my remix version. So I have a neo-Western, I have romantic comedies, I have a sports film, I have a religious film, not because I'm religious, but because I go, hey, religious films have this I would change. Let me try that. So it's always cool to see which one's better for you, which one you enjoy more, because I know they have different skills that you need to do for each of those.
Can you send me one, or can I get one? I'd like to read your stuff.
Oh, sure, yeah. If you let me know what you want to say, fiction, nonfiction, screenplays, why not? I could definitely send it to you.
Fiction. If you do fiction, You do?
I do.
Okay, send me that, and then I'll tell you if I can read it in one sitting, and then you'll know.
Absolutely. That's going to be the challenge. You're going to hear it back here at New Amsterdam Radio, whether or not the book gets finished. Linda, it's been a pleasure hanging with you, talking about your books. When everyone wants to engage with you or contact you, how do they go about doing that?
I have an email, let me give you the other one. Linda J, like John, Freeny, Freeny, @gmail.com.
This is New Amsterdam Radio, the podcast for creatives. Thank you so much, and I want to have you back, especially when we see the Dog Lenin miniseries or the Nobody's Angel comic books. I know these two properties are going to be huge for you, and I get to be on the ground floor.
Thank you, and it's been a treat to meet you. And don't renege on me. Send me something. Okay?
I definitely will.